In the tradition of Malcolm X, peace be unto you. Many years ago, when I was a junior in college, I read a book entitled How to Lie with Statistics. And among many methods, there's one method which was described, which involved using a few days or weeks or months, maybe a couple of years, to claim a pattern or trend of increasing sales, for instance, or decreasing sales of a product. Or it could be, of course, used to suggest an increase in the crime rate or a decrease in the crime rate. That would be used by politicians and people in law enforcement, and usually in order to get an increase in their budget. Now, that statistical method is deceitfully used to influence public opinion, as I said, for political purposes, business purposes, usually tied to effectuating some gain, some monetary gain for a group of people. That's how the system rolls. Now, recently, a few days ago, at Lake Merritt in Oakland, the police department held a rally. And the rally centered around the issue of crime in Oakland. And in our case, it's about whether crime is trending up or trending down in the city of Oakland. Police Chief Lerone Armstrong gave a speech. And of course, the implication, the emotional, persuasive implication of his speech was that crime is out of control, it's surging, it's trending upward. So, rhetoric like that, instead of facts, is now what is fed to the people of Oakland by the Oakland Police Department. Usually we see that confined to newspaper sensationalism or television media sensationalism. And we see that too, because you can find articles and you can hear news reports that echo this emotional surge of homicides in the city of Oakland. It's all propaganda. The description of crime in Oakland is being used to emotionally manipulate its citizens to increase the Oakland Police Department's budget. And so I ask you, for what? Well, more police officers and increased militarization, increase the stockpile of military equipment. But let's go back to the statistical issue that I raised. I'd like you to look again at the bell curve that I constructed to show something about homicides in Oakland. And I have said that the murder rate probability in Oakland, California is as predictable as a heartbeat. Statistically, there is a 68% chance that this year's murder rate will fall somewhere between 80 and 120 homicides. It's been that way for decades. And no number of police officers on the beat have pushed it below 60 homicides in a year. And if you do not get it below 60 homicides in a year, you have made no gains. You have not changed the average homicide rate. It's terrible to have to say that, but it is to be expected given a 50-year annual homicide average of between 104 and 109. And at present, There have been 72 homicides already this year. Should I be shocked? Well, it's tragic that homicides exist. One homicide is bad news, but we are moving into the expected range of between 80 and 120 homicides in Oakland. There should be no surprises if you have the long-term data. If you have the long-range data, then you can see real patterns, not propaganda. There is no crime surge in Oakland. Tragically, our rates of crime have become normalized because we are dealing with a self-perpetuating anti-culture, which is gestated in jails and prisons statewide. So when you lock nonviolent offenders up and you put them in jails or prisons for years, they're gestating in a total institution that reorients them into a kind of anti-cultural orientation. Now, it varies from person to person. Now, what is happening to us is that there is a national propaganda effort by Republicans and neoliberal Democrats to protect and increase the militarization of police departments nationwide. They want more SWAT teams, they want more tanks, they want more heavy equipment. For them, prisons and jails are also profitable and make careers for millions of people nationwide. It is tragic to have to admit that you can go into criminal justice and have a 35-year career and be proud of that. When it's sad, it's tragic that so many people have 30-year careers arresting people, confining people, releasing people, monitoring them on parole or probation, because it is a sign of social decay. And so that is what is happening. Crime now feeds a necessary component of the United States economy. Now crime is necessary, artificially necessary, but it has been made necessary. Otherwise, if you change the justice system in Oakland, thousands of people will lose jobs. And so a silent decision has been made. Better to keep the jobs and lock the people up. Let them be the fuel that drives the careers of thousands of people in a system that is nearly totally dysfunctional. So crime doesn't define for us moral boundaries between right and wrong behavior, but because nationally, crime generates billions of dollars and gives to politicians fuel with which to instill fear in the public so that they can access the public treasury. Have you noticed that most people in the House of Representatives and in the Senate are multimillionaires? If you're in Congress to serve the people, how do you become a multimillionaire? That's like a preacher who is supposed to be serving God becomes a multimillionaire. You got to be a fool to not understand what that's all about. So let's ask this question now. What cog in the wheel are police officers? A police officer's job description is very narrowly defined. It consists of observation and then, pursuant to the California Penal Code, along with criminal procedural case law, They have to make arrests when there is the commission of a crime or they suspect that a crime is about to be committed. They are to write a police report that then is passed up their chain of command, eventually making its way to the district attorney's office, where a decision is made to charge the arrestee or not. The Oakland Police Department, now on another side of their job description, is failing miserably. They are not doing a good job clearing cases. Now, if you look at this chart, you can see the statistics over several years. Their clearance score is far below 50% for violent crimes such as murder and non-negligent manslaughter, robbery, and aggravated assaults. Most homicide cases go unsolved. Robbery has the lowest clearance rate. Property crime is higher than all other types of crimes, which means that people can come from any other city or even fly to Oakland and commit certain crimes and be nearly 100% certain that they will get away scot-free. And it's not because we need more police officers. It's because there is a kind of anti-culture which is self-perpetuating. No one wants to talk about that. No one wants to deal with that issue, because to deal with that issue will make you have to restructure the way we deal with deviant criminal behavior. We are not doing it right. A police officer's job is not to make arrestees whole again when they come out of jail, nor to be concerned with whether communities are degrading over time because of the volume of arrests that they make. As police officers arrest more people, the situation gets worse because those people get processed back into the community over time and degrade the community. I'm not saying that those individuals who come out of prison are degraded inherently. I'm just saying they're marginalized, they're stigmatized. Society puts up a wall against them and makes it incredibly difficult for them to put their lives back into some modicum of self-sufficiency. So police officers are not concerned with whether the communities that people live in degrade over time. For instance, between 2013 and 2019, 76,000 people were arrested in Oakland. And they know that arrests do not subtract crime, nor even give temporary relief from crime to communities. What they do know also is that it's their job and they get paid. And they want a career and they want to retire and they want a pension. So here is the problem in a nutshell. What happens to communities over time given the 95% of arrestees who will return to their communities? What then? Who or what can make those individuals and communities whole again? The answer is, in my opinion, if policing continues business as usual, no one and nothing can make them whole again. No one and nothing. And here's the fundamental premise I'm basing my argument on. People are an organic part of the ecosystem. You've got to see it from another perspective to get this point. If you transform too many people into socially disabled individuals and communities, you trigger the universal law of entropy. Nothing in the universe escapes the law of entropy. If you increase the number of socially disabled people in communities, then communities are disabled more and more and more until those communities and eventually whole nations die. That's where the United States is at. That's where Oakland is at. You can build it up. You can build condominiums. The upper middle class can move in. The 1% of African Americans who are upper middle class can move in, but all around you will be increasing rot and disorder. And eventually, it will sink your life into a deep hole, because eventually you will be touched by the anti-culture that you have made possible so that you can make your career and make your $100,000 or $200,000 a year. Prisons and jails as business models do not work except to make America into a wasteland. I am Dr. Stephen Nur Ahmed. Peace be unto you.